This episode is brought to you by Anytime Fitness. We may talk a whole lot about sports, but when it comes to keeping fit ourselves, there's definitely room for improvement. I hit this point early July. I was just like, I am not in good enough shape. I started trying to walk at least 15,000 steps a day or hiking or just anything to keep my legs moving. Now it's the end of 2023. I feel great. I had a physical 3 weeks ago, and the guy was like, "You're doing great. You're doing better than you were 3 years ago." I felt great. Whatever your goals are, progress is possible thanks to Anytime Fitness. Get a personalized plan and support from an expert coach anytime, anywhere. Visit anytimefitness.com to try Anytime Fitness for free. Start to train for your life. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply. See website for details. This episode is brought to you by Atlassian. Atlassian software like Jira, Confluence, and Trello help power global collaboration for all teams so they can accomplish everything that's impossible alone. Because individually we're great, but together we're so much better. Learn how to unleash the potential of your team at Atlassian.com. Atlassian.com. Atlassian. Tap the banner or visit this episode's page to learn more.
Welcome to Beyond the Arc. My name is Kevin O'Connor. We got a loaded show today covering every single NBA playoff series with my coworker from The Ringer, Wosny Lambre. So let's get straight into it. All right, Woz, we just watched the Celtics blow out the Sixers. Close first half. Game got out of hand in that third quarter.
Sure did.
Celtics really made an emphasis in this game after 10 shots in game one for Jaylen Brown with their loss. They got Jaylen Brown going in this one.
Yeah, what I loved is he's just attacking in isolation. Quick attacks, getting to the paint no matter who was in front of him. He had the jumper working. They came out of a timeout. I think it was in the second quarter where he just comes off of a screen and just pulls up for three like he's Steph Curry. So he varied his attacks, which I love to see. And what I really liked was the Harden stuff. They sort of took that assignment more seriously after he had his career best playoff game ever. And so, yeah, that was encouraging if you're a Celtics fan.
Yeah, I mean, Boston made an emphasis on Brown. They definitely shut down James Harden. For Philadelphia, Harden goes off for 45 in game one. He's absolutely spectacular.
Yep.
You criticized him on group chat with the Ringer Podcast Network
did.
last week for not taking it seriously being in Vegas.
Made me look bad.
But today you look good, Woz. You look great today.
Yes, but fortunately for James Harden skeptics, he always rewards us with his play. This was a terrible game too, but I think collectively, I won't go too hard on Harden. I think collectively, Philly understood they sort of had one in the bag. Felt like they were treating this as like a ramp-up game for Joel Embiid. They kept him on a minutes limit, sort of playing him 7 minutes at a time.
Which was, they come out and they get smoked. But Embiid, it's important still to get him those reps, get him going. And I think, he had 5 blocks in the first half, 4 on Tatum, 1 amazing block on Jaylen Brown where Brown was going to yam it, and Embiid still got up there. Embiid, if you're a Sixers fan, you're disappointed in the result in this game. Harden, struggles on offense, but you got to be feeling at least pretty good with how Embiid looked defensively and what he could add to them moving forward in the series.
Yeah, the offense, he was still getting fouled. He drew a bunch of fouls in the first half, but defensively, it was just incredible. When guys like Brogdon or White or Smart even considered looking at the basket, they were completely deterred. And like you said, he had some great blocks against the big two over there. And so I'm encouraged by what I saw by Joel. In the past, he's had endurance issues, fatigue issues. So I understand why they wanted to, rather than just bring him back, throw him in the fire game 3, let him get some reps, let him get his win back under him, because it's impossible to simulate playoff level action. And so, yeah, that's encouraging, and I think we're going to get a nice series going forward.
So you're expecting a nice series here. You get an up and down, from Harden so far. He's amazing in 1, not so amazing in 2. No Embiid in 1. He's looking pretty solid overall for the time off, and considering the injury in game 2, you expect this to go deep now, or is there anything you saw from Boston in this game 2 that makes you feel like that Boston could potentially roll, as many did expect entering the series, considering Embiid's absence?
I just think, I think the Celtics are going to win ultimately in about 6 games. I'd be a little surprised if it went 7, but I do think there will be close games all throughout the rest of the, I guess in my prediction, 4, if not, 5 games. I don't.
Is that in part because of that supporting cast with Philadelphia, like PJ Tucker, Tobias Harris, Melton, all these guys that they've added throughout?
For sure, I think the talent is pretty comparable. For sure, I just think Boston is just better. And collectively, that's the important part. Collectively, they've done it more often than this Philadelphia group. And when you get into close games, high pressure, high leverage situations, I tend to like the continuity and the experience more than I do anything else. Unless the talent disparity is just overwhelming. For me, Boston just has so much institutional knowledge when it comes to playoff basketball and executing in the biggest moments. And also not getting frazzled when things don't go their way in a particular game or half or quarter. So, I think they'll play some competitive games. I don't think they're going to smoke them the rest of the series like they did tonight, but I think they're going to pull this out.
I mean, in the first half, maybe things would have been a little bit better for Boston if Marcus Smart didn't have more shots than Tatum and Brown combined. But for Philadelphia, you split on the road. Now it goes back to Philadelphia. You got to be feeling pretty good, especially without Joel Embiid. So I think it's a kind of a win overall for the Sixers and a feel-good week, right? You get a win. Without Embiid, Joel
Embiid comes back.
He gets his MVP and a Rolex from Harden.
Of course.
It's a good week overall for the Sixers.
Of course. I mean, I think he gave little baby $100,000 on his birthday or something like that in cash. And so it was only right that he give the big dog his a Rolex for his first MVP.
We'll be back soon talking about the rest of the playoffs.
Yes, sir.
This podcast is brought to you by AT&T Fiber with All-Fi. Something tells me that the guy watching sports for 13 hours straight on Sunday, who then stays up watching the recaps of those 13 hours, then calls his friends to talk about it, is definitely going to notice that half a second delay.
Get AT&T Fiber with All-Fi and watch sports any time of day from anywhere in your house. Live like a gigillionaire. Limited availability in select areas. Go to att.com/hypergig to check eligibility. Coverage may require extenders at additional charge.
Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. With me is Wosny Lambre, coming back to talk about the Nuggets and the Suns. We saw Denver go up 2-0 earlier this week, 97-87, holding Phoenix only 87 points.
Yep.
All this talk about the Nuggets, their defense, can Jokic make stops in the playoffs, holding Phoenix to 87, switching schemes throughout the game, switching late in the game, having Jokic on ball, off ball. It was pretty remarkable to see the Nuggets, I felt like, make themselves clearly the Western Conference favorites to represent the West in the finals.
Yeah, I think against the Suns, who schematically can't really punish Jokic the way other people have in the past, I think the reason for that is, one, their guys just operate in the one-on-one, right? I think if you go back to even say the Golden State series last year, they were making Jokic play out up on the floor, up in space. The Suns don't do that. Their guys want to get into their shots in mid-range, and they want to take contested twos for the most part. The only guy who you saw it towards the end of the game, the end of the third quarter, was Chris Paul. He started getting his shots off in game 2, but he's the only one. Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, as good as they are, not that they're like tunnel vision guys, they're not these excellent playmakers, right? They'll make some obvious pass and even make some nice sort of pocket passes when they need to, but the Nuggets have just been able to scheme all of that out. A lot of it is Jokic meeting them at the point of attack on the screen, especially with KD and Book. Some of it, too, is that he's just able to hide on their non-shooters, guys like Okogie and Craig. And so, yeah, they've schemed it up, but also the personnel matters, right? Bringing in a guy like Bruce Brown in the offseason, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, these are defensive-minded guys. Already having Aaron Gordon on the team. These guys have been incredible. You saw to the point where at the end of game 2, they weren't even playing Michael Porter Jr., right? Their max player. They played Bruce Brown instead. And so they've got the scheme versatility on defense, and then on offense, they got, 2-time MVP, probably should have been 3.
Yeah, I mean, we see Denver's offense dominate in game 1, game 2. They only score 97, but there's moments where they just look unstoppable with Murray and Jokic, that 2-man game. It feels like with Phoenix right now, you got Chris Paul. He's got a groin injury. It's another postseason injury for Chris Paul. Like, no surprise there. I think the Suns are done, Was. It does seem like that right now.
I mean, they've announced that Chris Paul will be reevaluated within a week, which means at minimum he's going to miss the next 2 games. And it feels almost impossible that they can win both of those games with Chris Paul out. And so
why is that? Well, why does it seem impossible without CP3, who's been up and down throughout the playoffs?
Well, one, it's because have you watched the campaign minutes? They haven't been great. And Devin Booker early.
But could it mean more KD, more Book? Like is that the potential benefit of no CP3? When if you look at the points per touch numbers, it's like, it is an outlier number for KD anytime he's getting a touch in the possession. Booker, it's at a great level. CP3, they haven't performed as well in the postseason.
Sure, but I think you'll see diminishing returns on that when they have to be at the point of attack. Should be noted, Devin Booker earlier in his career was a guy who played de facto point guard for the Suns. He's done a lot of shepherding the playmaking duties for this team. The problem becomes a rotational one, right? Where it's like, all right, if you put Booker on the ball at the 1 and he's doing all of the playmaking duties around him, there's no shooting. There's no floor spacing that's coming in behind that. The reason why Chris Paul's pick and roll game can work so much with Ayton, even to the limited degree that it did against Denver, is that Booker and Kevin Durant are spacing that thing out, right? So you can't send help at that pick and roll. You have to guard that with 2 guys, right? Meaning Jokic has to make some pretty hard decisions as to whether he steps up on Chris Paul or allows him to dribble past him. When you put Booker on the ball now, and now you replace him with Chris Paul with Campaign or whoever you replace him with, you'll find that Denver will be able to divert more resources to stopping that pick and roll attack than they could when he's off the ball and defenses have to pay so much attention to him and KD. So no, I don't think that's going to be the answer. More touches.
So I think we both are kind of in mutual agreement, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Suns don't like their chances of winning the series, right? Like that.
Yeah,
we agree there. So let's assume the Suns do lose the series to the Nuggets. Does Phoenix, despite some of the pros of Chris Paul, the benefits of having him, the injury history, the decline, his age, do you think the Suns will need to find a new point guard this offseason?
I don't think they need a new point guard, but they need somebody who can spell Chris Paul on playmaking duties.
Better than Campaign.
Better than Campaign does, yes.
Even better than Devin Booker, you mean? Like, because Booker's better as that scorer than as a playmaker.
Yeah, I mean, he as improved as he's been as a playmaker, he's obviously doesn't profile as some James Harden, Chris Paul, Luka Doncic, LeBron James.
You want him as a throwback 2 guard is what you want.
Right, 100%. Yeah. I think he's optimized as that. And, when teams sort of overload on him, he's able to get the ball out to guys, but it's a whole different story of being the person that's organizing everything for your team. And I think, honestly, it's more taxing when you do that and have to shoulder the burden when, things break down and you have to create one-on-one in isolation. So I think they need to get somebody who can spell Chris Paul. I don't think that, his deal is only half guaranteed next year. They might move on. I don't know. And also, I think they just need to get somebody who can shoot next to what Booker and KD do, because that guy in the corner, teams deciding that they can just ignore him sort of gum up the works for what KD and Booker are trying to do. So they need to get one guy that can shoot better than a Kogi or Craig does in spots.
Well, Waz, we'll be back pretty soon after the break talking about the rest of these series. Thank you. All right, Waz, we're back. We just looked at some Lakers videos of them getting defensive stops against that Warriors offense. Waz, I feel like in that entire game 1, Lakers defense, no matter what the Warriors threw at them, other than the 14-0 run in the fourth quarter when LA was clearly like out of gas. AD playing a ton of minutes. They were going for in that game. I felt like the Lakers had a lot of different answers with Schroeder, with Jared Vanderbilt, AD being an absolute dominant force. Are you at all worried about some of those Warriors lineups with multiple non-shooters out there, or are there solutions for Steve Kerr in the series?
I'm not, to be honest. I don't think that's a long-term solution in the sense of, one, it's not as if the Lakers got completely horrible looks the entire 14-0 run. There was some missed wide-open threes. I thought the D'Angelo Russell shot where he caught a foul and he got he made the shot, but they called it on the floor. I thought that was a made basket. They got decent looks out of it, and the reason why the Jordan Poole thing isn't the obvious closing lineup is because they can't guard when they go to that. When they go to that three guard thing. So I don't think that's a permanent solution offensively. In fact, I think you make it easier for Vanderbilt to stay on the floor, to be honest, when you got guys like Clay, and not to say that Clay's some sort of sieve, it's just with him and Jordan Poole and Steph, I think there's more places to attack, right? The option of, say, switching any pick and rolls involving AD, if you bring Jordan Poole into that or Steph into that those are easier places to attack. And when you can't switch that pick and roll, like the Lakers, when you guard any AD pick and roll action conventionally, they are hard to guard. The best way to contain that, as we saw with Memphis, is to switch things, whether it be LeBron, whether it be Russell, or whether it be Schroeder. And so, no, I don't think that's the long-term solution, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that Memphis series. We see in game one of that series, they have Jaren Jackson Jr. and Dillon Brooks defending AD and LeBron, and they're able to switch that pick and roll. And then the Lakers just go to, okay, we'll have Austin Reeves.
Right.
And that's part of the benefit for this Lakers offense, right? Like, sometimes it's going to be D'Lo. Sometimes it's going to be Reeves. And then you got LeBron. Draymond talked about this. He's like, we've never seen LeBron James off ball this often, cutting to the rim, setting screens and rolling.
It's a new thing.
I mean, it is different. Like, this is a new version of LeBron right now.
Yeah. In fact, I wouldn't even say we've never seen LeBron off ball. I'd take it even further. We've never seen LeBron win a series, a LeBron team win a series in which he was not excellent. That's never happened, ever. We've seen him lose series where he played excellent, and we've seen him lose series where he didn't, right?
Yep.
We've never seen him win a series where he was not all NBA caliber type of player. And I think Memphis is the first time that's ever happened. And I think game one was even more indication of this. It's AD playing at, all NBA MVP level, if you will.
Best player in the league type of stuff from AD, right?
Absolutely. And so, I agree with Draymond, but I think it's even deeper than that.
So I think for this Lakers team right now, one of the, I guess, concerns, if you want to put it that way, like despite LeBron playing well, right, despite not shooting the ball well, he is shooting 18% from three in the playoffs after shooting 32% over the full season. Part of me was thinking to myself, like, will we see the Warriors maybe sag off of LeBron? There was moments in that game, if you watch all the possessions, Andrew Wiggins was closing out hard on LeBron threes.
Yeah.
Draymond Green, he was sagging off, letting LeBron shoot wide open jumpers, and he made one of two of them. So I looked at, in second spectrum, LeBron's numbers. Like, let's say the Warriors did do what Draymond did in game one. Over the course of the season, LeBron shot 28% from three when he was heavily contested from three. 32% from three when he was lightly contested, 48% when he was left wide open.
He's not that kind of shooter.
Yes.
And
he's not Dillon Brooks.
No,
he's not Andre Robertson.
No.
He's still LeBron James.
And I think the reason they were effective against LeBron is that they contested his shots.
Yes.
Like, you still have to show against him. You can't just leave him completely unguarded. Like, again, Tony Allen. Like, we've seen this a bunch of times with these one-way kind of guys. Like, he's not that type of player. So, no, I don't think that's the answer. That stat you just pulled up is a beautiful illustration. Like, if he's wide open, and we saw it sort of like he walked into a wide-open three. I think he put him up 10.
That was like, I guess, with Draymond sagging off.
Yeah, in the third quarter, and they had to call a timeout after that. Like, that kind of practice shot LeBron can make.
Yeah.
It's within the rhythm of the offense, like heavily contested, he's having a hard time with.
And you know what? You think at some point he should improve from 18%.
I feel like he will.
Right? And that could be an issue for the Warriors when they're on defense. What about when the Warriors are on offense? We see the Lakers, we're talking about sagging off of shooters when it comes to Denver with what they're doing to Phoenix with Okogie and Craig. We see that, maybe the Warriors could do that against some Lakers non-shooters with Vanderbilt. Mm-hmm. The Lakers are also saying, like, Gary Payton, we're not worried about you. Draymond Green, we're not worried about you. Kevon Looney, we're giving you the Domantas Sabonis treatment that you gave to him last round. Like, if you're setting a DHO at the arc, we're not defending it unless it's Stephen Curry and then AD comes up. Do the Warriors need to move away from some of those lineups with Draymond and Looney? Do they need to go with 4 shooters more often around those guys?
I mean, if they want to look, Wiggins did a good job on the offensive glass for sure. But I think if they want to get chances at those second chance points, they're going to need that. Defensively, they need to have, and also they need to keep AD off of the offensive boards. He was a monster yesterday, rebounding wise. He was the only thing keeping the Warriors off of that glass at all was him. But also, I think some of it is, I don't even think it's the shooting stuff. To me, Steph has to be more willing to go just isolation. That's, he's been his best isolation self this year of his whole career. So I think we're going to need to see more Steph in isolation, which will force the Lakers to make decisions about sort of hard doubles and, showing out all the way out to 30 feet, that type of thing. But, you mentioned AD. The secret to his game yesterday was not just that, he was roaming the paint and blocking everything while also deterring people from taking shots at all. He was in the right moments, a lot of times being like, oh, I'm not going to sag too far in. It's Steph coming off of this screen, right? So he would step up just enough. Mm-hmm. He's such a long player where Steph was like hesitant to shoot, and even if he did, he felt like that was a contest, right?
He could defend the shooter coming off as well as the roll by Looney going inside the basket. Like, that's what makes him such a special defender. Yep. And then Vanderbilt too. Yep. Like you mentioned, I agree with you. Steph and the Warriors should go with more, high ball screen, more ISOs. Like, Steph is unbelievable. I mean, even though he doesn't do a ton of it, he's one of the most efficient ISO scorers in NBA history. It's just he's not in an offense like the ISO ball rockets Harden.
But he only goes to it when he feels like break glass against emergency. You saw Game 7. He was like, just give me the ball.
And he drops 50, right? Yeah, I mean, so I think, but, there's no such thing as a Steph Curry stopper,
Yeah, that's not.
But
that's not possible.
Is Jared Vanderbilt the closest thing equipped? Is he equipped for that with his length and speed and versatility and toughness and mindset? Is he the closest thing we've seen in a postseason series?
I think he's making it harder on Steph than it ordinarily would be, and over the course of a 42-minute, 43-minute, 44-minute night where all of your shot creation is difficult. And it isn't just you running into a spot and catching and shooting. Rather, it's you getting the ball, trying to create space via your dribble on step backs or what have you. That's just more physically taxing. And over the course of a long series, it just gets harder and harder and harder to go to that well. And so that's what I think Vanderbilt is doing. And that's why I think Steve Kerr was smart to try to win last night with his motion offense, continuity-based stuff, because to ask Steph to come in on night one and just be a superhero and say, do that again 3 other times, is going to be tough. And then there might be nights where he's a hero and they lose, right? And so that's what I think you should be worried about as a Warriors fan.
I'm looking forward to that game, too. That's going to be a very fun one. Well, we have Heat Knicks tied 1-1 right now. Game 1, Jimmy Butler gets hurt at the end. Game 2, Julius Randle ends up coming back. He has a great game, 25 points, creating shots from the perimeter for them, adding what they really missed in that Game 1, especially towards the end when their offense just couldn't do anything against the Heat defense. What did you see Randle adding to the Knicks in that game, too? And does it give you any confidence in New York's odds of winning this series, regardless of Butler's health for Miami?
Yeah, I think Randle yesterday, what was important was, one, the shot creation. As much I've been in the tank for Obi Toppin basically since they drafted him. I love his motor. I love what he brings to the table. But shot creation is not a thing that he does. And at this point in his career, Julius Randle is actually a better defender than Obi Toppin, which nobody could have forecasted, in the earlier portions of Randall's career that we'd be thinking
he
him
was
as
aloof. He just didn't pay attention.
He was
didn't hustle.
terrible.
But now, I mean, he's
a competent defender, right? Nobody's gonna call him Bill Russell, but he's turned himself into a competent defender. He's a defensive upgrade too. So the fact that, and Brunson had a great game too. However, as we saw in game 1, with him just being the only thing that can be created in the half-court offense, Miami was sort of able to crowd him, and it felt like he was literally playing in the trenches. Like, he had no place to move. And so Randall frees him up to do other things where he's not carrying the burden by himself. And again, what he's done on defense is big. He's going to be one of the only guys that can consistently get to the line. And so, yeah, it's going to be important going down the rest of the series.
Where do you expect the series to go moving forward?
I think it's going to be a long series. I think it'll go to 7, but it feels impossible to bet against Jimmy Butler. The series before, remember, he fell on his butt, sort of bruised his backside, and, he was legitimately feeling it. He came back and was all-time great. Last year against Boston, remember, he had the knee troubles. He had a couple of just like, I don't know, maybe this is completely over. Then in game 5 and 6, he's Michael Jordan again. And so you just can't count Jimmy Butler out, even on a bum ankle. I just think this will be a long series, but in the crucible of the game 7, I gotta go Jimmy.
I'm gonna go with the Knicks still in the series. I just like all the options. Randall looked great in that game 2 with his time off. Jalen Brunson is awesome. I just think that Knicks team has so many different ways they can beat you. Whereas the Heat, even though they had a great game 2, they're so reliant on Butler, and if his health is limited at all, that's going to be tough for them. Well, Woz, we got a lot of great games coming up this week. Appreciate you coming on Beyond the Arc. Thank
you, man. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching today's episode of Beyond the Arc. We got Through the Ringer up next with Tate Frazier. If you want to hear my extended conversation with Big Woz, head over to Spotify and search for Beyond the Arc.